Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for December 22nd, 2023. I'm Benji Fisher moderating, and we also have Ralph Kohler sharing the screen. We'll start off the discussion, and Aaron McHale and Thomas Howell. Go ahead, Ralph.
Okay, we are looking today at issue number 2609256 and warning message to import translations after enabling interface translations. Steps, we just go through the steps to reproduce, and I've created two instances, one without the patch and one with the patch applied. The steps to reproduce are the following. You just have to install the language module, then go to configuration, to languages, add a second language. Let's go with German. And then you go back to extend. Oh, and on a side notice, I've mentioned already in a thread, not related to this issue, but still related, is use one of the language switcher blocks to allow cert visitors to switch between languages. You can enable the blocks on the block administration page. Block administration page is sort of ambiguous from my point of view. Block administration, I would think it could be either in content or it could be the block layout. And yeah, it's actually pointing to the block layout page, and why not simply addressing the name what it is? So blocks on the block layout page maybe, but it's unrelated. And let's go on. And then go to extend and install the interface translations. And yeah, nothing is happening there. And in comparison, if you go down, apply the same steps, language, configuration, language, match, German, go back, go to interface. And then you see the order is different, and you can see it was added, go to available and translation updates in order to download translations for your language. That's basically what this patch is adding. Any questions?
Okay, so it's changing the order. It's putting the warning ahead of the info message.
Yeah.
And then it's adding this additional line.
Yep. And I have to note one detail from a perspective of the German translation. Not sure if it's in a real life setting, a relevant one, or it could happen in any way. But if you follow now as a user, follow the suggestion, go to available translations updates in order to download translation for language. I think, oh, cool, I'm able to. So I do that. But then I see missing translations for one project, German. So I kind of feel fooled. I'm sent to a page to download something, and then I get a notice that the translation I'm supposed to download there is not available and even missing. So that's also one detail to note there.
Okay, I think Thomas has a comment or a question. Go ahead.
I like this, but I don't think this belongs there if the available translation updates doesn't work. So that the comment on being fooled, I agree with very strongly, because to me that's even more like it needs to be very clear how you're supposed to take care of this warning message. And right now it doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem to me that you can act upon it, and warning messages are things that you need to be able to act on. And the other question I had was, what happens after you've is this a one-time warning message that only appears after installing that later the second module, or is this something that is there persistently until you add the required translation update?
Right. So what exactly triggers this, and what action are you supposed to be taking?
Yes, much more concisely said, but exactly.
Um, what page does that go to? Available translation updates. It's
Under reports.
admin reports translations.
On here. And I've noticed one other semi-related issue as well. I think if you install the language module and then the content translation module only instead of the interface translation, then you get the notice there is only a single language installed. You have to install a second language. While without aside the default language, any language installed, but if you do the same for the interface translation, so install first the language, keep just the default language, and then install the interface translation, then you don't get the notification. And that might be also something to recommend to the user. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to install the interface translations. So it's the same situation like for the content translation, basically.
So I guess in addition to the fact that this is not actionable, which is the main problem, I don't think this should be a warning message. I think it should be a status message. I don't think that downloading the translation updates is any more of an error condition than configuring permissions for the interface translation module. Go ahead, Ralph.
Just one additional thought. That's something that was also brought up in that issue. The question why the translation isn't automatically downloaded. Okay, at the moment it's impossible for German because it's on 11.dev, but still the question, if the interface translations are available, why not automatically download them? And why require an extra step for the user to manually download them afterwards? And that way, it would be okay to present a warning message instead, like you suggested now, as for the current state, it would make sense to present it as a status message, but instead, why make that step necessary at all? Automatically download it, and in case something goes wrong, like at the moment, then do an error or a warning message then.
Yeah, it would be nice if it were automatic, and we certainly download translations automatically in some situations, like when you enable a new language, they're downloaded automatically.
Yep.
Go ahead, Thomas.
This is unfortunately an ignorance question because I've never used the translation module before. When it's downloaded, is it placed within the database or is it actually placed um, in the file system? Because I know in certain instances, if it goes down to the file system, it may not be writable, and that may impact what we're suggesting. But if it's downloading it to the database, I would second or third the fact that it should just all be part of installing the module. It's strange to separate it if it's downloaded into the database. And you could make part of that process a warning message or whatever saying, hey, are you sure you want to do this? You're downloading it. But I would have assumed normally that checking the box for a language was actually making that available. So it's strange that it is actually a separate step.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it downloads files to the temporary directory. And if you don't have write permissions to the temporary directory, you have bigger problems with your site than this. It downloads them and then it imports them into the database.
Okay, so it goes to the database, and that was the important question for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so as a question of scope, I don't think we should say, no, don't add a message because it should really be happening automatically. That should be a separate issue. And you know, maybe there already is such an issue. But in the scope of this issue, I would say it's reasonable to say this shouldn't be a warning message, it's just a status message. And it shouldn't talk about downloading translations. It should be something like to check for available updates. So something like check link available translation updates and link to see what needs to be updated, something like that. Go ahead, Ralph.
But check available updates, or however you phrase it, is sort of misleading, because if it's phrased that way, I would assume some translations are already downloaded. And in the current state, it looks like there isn't anything downloaded, and you have to download the first initial iteration manually on your own.
What is the process for downloading them? I mean, suppose you go to that page. What is that a details element that can be expanded? File not found. Ah.
I could quickly try if it's possible to apply the patch to a 10.2 install, and there would be a German translation, and then we could see how it's presented there. But I'm not sure if it will be possible, but I could quickly try. 1 second.
Yeah, presumably the patch is only adding the link to this page. It's not changing what happens at this page. So you don't even need to apply the patch. You just need to have a 10.2 site set up.
What was the last one? 1 second.
Just while Ralph is figuring that out, one thing that comes to mind, and I'll mention it while he's doing it because it's not directly related to this issue, but from an overall like product usability perspective, one thing that would be interesting to see is, you know, farther down the road when we have things like Project Browser in, could you use Project Browser to download translation packs or whatever we call them? And I know that's the case on certain systems. Like I'm pretty sure on Windows, like it just uses its built-in you know, store package management system now to download like additional language packs, and they're literally just packages that are installed in the system. So like from a sort of holistic perspective of, if as a site like administrator, you're downloading something, like you're installing something into the site, whether it's a theme, a module, a language pack, you know, I feel like those should all come from the same place. Like, you know, but that's a much bigger question than what we're looking at today. So
There it's already downloading it. So but I'm on 10.2 on here. Oops, I'm still raising my hand. Sorry.
Thomas?
Just a question about what just happened. Is it's automatically downloading it and installing it in 10.x. Does that mean that the only reason we're even seeing this error in 11 is because the German translation isn't available for 11 yet? Is that like, so essentially, does this error message or this status message just vanish if the language exists?
I would assume the same, honestly. And I'm wondering how you're able to run into that error or that status message or warning at all then. Oops.
I mean, I could see it being an issue if you had a language to pick that might be uncommon and it takes longer for it to be available, but I still don't see how this is actionable. And it becomes even a more significant problem if it's not actionable. I don't know why it would be a status message because to me, that would be very, very confusing.
Yeah, so now I'm beginning to think that I was wrong, that this actually is a warning message rather than a status message, because it only happens when and it looks as though it does try to download the translations automatically, and this warning message indicates that something has gone wrong.
Yeah.
But it's still not actionable, and it is still misleading. I suppose it's better to have a warning message than not. And maybe it should be the responsibility of the page we're looking at now to give some information on what to do next. Thomas, is your hand raised again or still?
I just raised it again.
Go ahead.
I disagree very slightly in that I think that the warning message should give the recommendation either go to this link to this page and this page takes care of the problem, or unchoose, uninstall the language you just picked. Like I would either suggest that, like I'm worried about it being in a broken state where you show that up once and it's not clear how to, I still want to have both a path to fix it and a path to undo it if there is a warning message, because I still want the warning message to be fully actionable. And having the language that says you can action this by uninstalling German because German's not available, and saying it more concisely, that's still a valid action, but I really want, like, warning messages have to have something for me, like otherwise it's not a warning, it's just an error saying it's tried to install something and failed to install it, and that's not a warning, that's an error, it's one time, and it shows up in the logs as a warning or an error message.
Oh yeah, speaking of logs, Ralph, is there anything in the logs when this happens?
1 second. I'm in the with the patch. Recent log messages.
New configuration objects have been updated. Well, that's not very helpful.
Yeah.
And that's really not helpful.
Yeah.
The location refer going batch pages that won't work after the batch is completed.
And pretty unspecific.
So I still think that, you know, without expanding the scope of the current issue, it makes sense to change the wording so that it doesn't talk about downloading, but does direct you to this page. You can navigate to this page normally. Once you're there, the breadcrumbs tell you that it's under reports, so you can go back there later.
Is your audio gone, Benji?
Yeah. I was just thinking, but go ahead.
Okay, because it stopped at one point and then it was a long silence.
Sorry.
No problem. I think in addition to pointing to the available translation updates page, I would also vote towards Thomas's suggestion, also adding the option to undo it, basically to remove the language again. But basically, I think it would have to be some sort of reassurance on the issue for the people working there. If that issue, that message only shows if a case like that missing translation for one project is the case, and then that issue shows up, then you could be more specific, meaning, yeah, what the status says, the translation is not available at the moment, for example, and then you have two options: either go there for more detail, available translation updates, or you have the option to simply remove the language for now and undo that step.
Looking at the issue, it says there's a workaround, which is to delete the language and then add it back again. And according to the issue, that works to fix the problem. So I would suggest, since warning messages should not be too long, and because the warning message only appears once after you've submitted the form, that the warning message should have a link to the report page, and the report page should suggest a workaround.
Okay.
And that way, between the warning message and the persistent message on the report page, we would have something actionable.
And having something actionable on the reports page would have the advantage that based on the kind of error that is happening, you can provide different kinds of actionable items there.
Right. You can try again later. You can uninstall and reinstall the language. So I think a combination of changing the wording of the warning message and adding information to the reports page is the right way to go. And frankly, I think that's in scope for the current issue because just adding the warning message with a link to the page doesn't accomplish much.
And make the log message more specific and more informational. At the moment, it's too broad and saying more or less nothing.
Sure. If the log message just added a link to the same reports page, that would be a minimal improvement, I think, to the log message. Go ahead, Thomas.
I'd like a little bit more in the like I'd like slightly better wording on the log message because I typically dealt with log messages from the file system for my entire time that I managed websites. And so URL links are not automatically the most helpful thing, especially when you're searching older logs, et cetera, et cetera. I like it doesn't have to be a lot of words, but it should make sense. The error message in the logs should resemble more what you see in the message that comes up here. And that could be the message that was on here. It could say missing translation for German or missing translations on, like, it could take that message, but I would like that message to appear in the logs if possible, whatever is most appropriate.
Yeah, that's a good point. Log messages, like warning messages, should be actionable and they should also be informational. And no configuration objects have been updated is not very informational. I guess that message is probably coming from some parent form class that deals with configuration, and we should override it. And give a more specific message. So do we want to try more wordsmithing, or should that be done by people who are more familiar with the problem space?
We could maybe do an initial try and then see if the people on the issue intervene or have better suggestions that way.
Okay.
Maybe.
So shall we start with the warning message?
Second, I just show the current state there. Or yeah, the warning message is the other one. Yeah. However you want. The warning message. Yeah, okay, there. That one.
Yeah. So I guess information first and then the link. So something like some translation updates are not available. Go to link available translation updates and link for more information. Any alternative suggestions or improvements on that?
I'm thinking about it 1 second. I'm copy the current stage if I'm able to. Yeah. Some translations are not available. Go to available translation updates for more information. I like the order. The only detail I think would make sense to be added is something like you have more information there, but should be also a detail about that it's actionable there. Though basically updates for information to fix the problem or something like that.
To address the problem?
Yeah.
For information and
I would maybe flip that around. So like, so obviously at first we state the problem. So like, some translation of it's not available, so that's fine. Then I would make that its own sentence.
oh yeah, definitely.
And then maybe say for more information and to address the problem, go to and then the link. So that we had the last thing as the link, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's usually the pattern that we follow. Although again, I realize we don't really have a pattern we've agreed on, but like that I would suggest doing it that way around.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like so like for more
1 second.
information. Yeah, for more information to address this problem. Is it for more information and to address this problem? Or is it for more like are those two separate things?
I guess it's information about how to fix it.
Right. For more information. Or how about to address the problem? Do we need to say for more information? Like if it was just to address the problem, go to and then link available translation updates.
Because necessarily, if you take for example, the case with the 11 branch where German is not available at all, there's nothing actionable on that page basically, and that would be again the being fooled situation. And that way, to address the problem, you still
How about instead of to address the problem, something like and possible next steps?
For more information and possible next steps.
Right.
Okay, 1 second.
Is that a bit slangish? Like next steps is something that feels very IT language.
Maybe.
What I guess, and sorry, I might have missed this earlier because I was mildly distracted. But is there a specific reason that you couldn't address the problem when you go to the
One
available
second.
translation updates?
Which tab was it? No patch. Isn't it? Here. That's the case for the Drupal 11.
Oh,
I'm
see,
unable to do
okay.
anything there, so that's the case.
I wonder if that's more of a is that more of a bug though? Like that feels like a side effect of the fact that we were running on like
It's
I
not
feel like
even a
that
bug. It's not even a bug in that case. It's just no translation was created yet there. It's just probably the English translation or the English version.
but I wonder if that is because that's pointing to 11.x, right?
Right.
And we're in the process of like moving towards a main branch. So I wonder if that's just another side effect of some of the like oddities of this process that we're in. I guess what I'm saying is like, should that be filed as a separate bug to highlight this is potentially a problem that people might run into? And it's a small problem because like ideally most sites will be running on a released version of Drupal. But I guess what I'm saying is, does this need a separate issue to like highlight, hey, this is maybe a problem?
I think it's a bigger problem that if you're working with the 11.x branch or eventually the main branch, you can't install modules because they don't declare compatibility
Right.
with Drupal 11.
So is that the same? Is that part of the same overall like problem? I guess is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. So I guess that the question for here is, does our text like if we recognize okay that's a problem and it's ideally it's going to be fixed, then what does the text look like in that situation where this is no longer a problem? I think that's what we should be aiming for if we recognize that this is a temporary issue. Hopefully it's a temporary issue. And maybe we need as I said, maybe we need a separate issue to look at that.
Okay, let's let Thomas have his say.
It's very brief. I'm just wondering, we keep on talking about German, which is a more common language. Are there instances, or is it possible that we list languages that even in the main release are unavailable, or are we updating what languages we let be chosen based? Like, I don't understand the condition that would even cause this outside of this edge case of 11 being in development. So if something is in main, how do languages get added to that picker, and how is it ensured? Like, to me, again, this is a side issue and I'm not looking to fix it, but I want to understand it so that we're making the right choice about the language to put into the error or into the warning message.
Yeah, how do we find ourselves in this situation when we're not running Drupal 11.x? And I think the answer is that on a real site, you won't have just Drupal core, you'll have some contributed modules and some combination of a lesser used contributed module and a lesser used language. There won't be translations available for that module in that language. I think that's the more common use case.
Let's test it with 10.2, 1 second. Because let's pick Somali as an example, because as you can see over here, 0 contributors.
So you think even without contrib modules, if you try to import Somali,
No, it is not listed. Okay. Um,
okay, so if there are no translations for Drupal core in Somali, then it's not on the list. But if there are translations for
Maltese.
Hawaiian, but you install some random contrib module. No,
Oh, it has one. Okay. Yeah, but it's up to date then. Difficult to test then. But definitely in regards of the requirements, there should be some threshold, basically, of a certain number of translated strings before a language becomes listed at all in those lists.
it seems to be one translated string is enough. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what Maltese has.
But from a usability perspective, it's challenging, and it's already challenging if you have and distracting if you have, for example, 80% or 90% of 95, if you have single strings that are still in English. It's throwing you off when you try to use an interface that way.
Sure.
So what are our next steps?
So that's what we were discussing before. You can try again later because it might be a temporary failure to download. Or you can uninstall and reinstall the language. I don't know what other options there might be, but there are at least those two.
But those two recommendations would be placed on the reports page then.
Right.
On here, depending on the kind of error or status the language in question has. But about the warning message on the extend page, that would be on the first sentence, there's a consensus, I suppose. Some translation updates are not available. But in regards of the second sentence,
Thomas?
Maybe like I would like the sentence better without possible. Could we just say for more information and next steps, go to available translation updates? It like there needs like we're assuming that something has to happen over there. And so possibles would seem to me to be a temporary state only because that bug hasn't been fixed. So assuming the bug is fixed, removing possibles would make the sentence more palatable to me.
Sure.
Should we just say for more information, go to like even next steps are technically more information.
Yeah, that's where we started, and yeah, sometimes, as usual, less is more. But I guess the feeling was that we wanted to make it clear that there were options for fixing the problem. I'm not sure I agree with that. But that's why we started adding the phrase to address the problem.
Yeah, but then we realized that we can't confidently say that you can address the problem.
Yeah,
So
I'm happy to go with the shorter version.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
And
Me too.
Thomas gives a thumbs up.
me too.
Okay.
So that way.
Insert a comma.
Yeah.
And then the link would be available translation updates, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Let's make it like gosh. That way.
It's always embarrassing when people watch you type.
Yep.
Just use the excuse that it's a Friday afternoon.
Okay, though the end as a warning message.
Yes.
It should be. Yep. And on the available translation updates page, the options, potential options would be
Try again later.
Uninstall and reinstall.
Yes.
And then permanently uninstall.
yeah. Uninstall, it's the correct oh no, terminology wise, as it was adding the language, so it would be then removing the language, isn't it?
Let me see.
Yeah, it was add. You hit the plus add language button, but then you would change uninstall and reinstall to add, remove and add the
Yeah.
language. And this is a separate issue, but would it be important to allow someone to put in a URL of a language they wanted to install? Or that seems wrong to me, but I just wanted to ask the question.
Is it possible at all?
I'm assuming it's not possible right now, but should that be an available option that someone put in a functional link to a set of strings they want to install? I don't know if that's something that should be part of this second related issue that is not existing yet.
Not sure.
If no one else has an opinion, I say then don't add it.
Yep.
This is better.
I suppose it would open a can of worms and potential problems down the road. So
I would say that based upon the second pages or the available translation updates page message, my first inclination was, okay, how do I put in the URL or the FTP site or whatever to get that file? That was my first assumption. So the language that's on that page doesn't make it clear that that isn't an action to take.
Yeah, surely we must have information on Drupal.org. So add a link to the appropriate page rather than try to figure that out here.
That's better.
Just one question. So should be the suggestion be on that page having basically the status as the first sentence. So in that case, missing translations for one project, and then a period. And after that, the action that could be taken based on the kind of status there is, and would be the wording okay we currently have here, like try again later, remove and re-add the language, or permanently remove them, or permanently remove the language.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to repeat this. There might be a bunch of different languages, and I wouldn't want to repeat it for every language. I would just want it at the top. And conditional on whether there are any missing languages.
I feel like I'm nitpicking, but do we really need the word permanently? Like, we don't tend to use, I don't think we use that in other places. It's like, if I was the user, I would ask, what's the difference between removing a language and then permanently removing a language? Because in one line we talk about removing, re-adding, the next line we talk about permanently removing. So I think that indicates there's some difference between like removing versus permanently removing. And my gut feeling is there probably isn't.
And I guess the accurate description is remove the language and then don't re-add it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is about as close as we're going to get. And we should not say that this is definitely the language you have to use, but just as describe it as a first draft, or
Yep.
or something like
First draft of the potential actionable options.
you wrote potion.
Oh, that was an autocorrect. First draft of the
And I would include in that the comment that this should only be visible if under the condition that there's a missing translation for one of the languages. So it's not, it has to be something, an action that people need to take. Otherwise, we don't want the message showing up at the top. And it shouldn't be under individual languages. Those are just conditions that I heard Benji mention earlier.
Right. And add a link to documentation on Drupal.org.
Is it? I mean, I'm still a bit unsure about the word permanently there, but like even if we're saying this is a first draft, it's like if we say that word's there, then like that, even if it's a draft, that carries weight. So I don't know, unless others feel strongly about it, I would suggest we don't use the word permanently.
I don't feel strongly.
Yeah, I think it's already removed, and
it's already
perfectly okay with it being gone.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't I wasn't looking. Okay, cool, fine.
Yeah, the only thing why I've added the permanently was basically it's sort of redundant. You have remove and re-add and remove the language, and that way, yeah, it's clear somehow, but still, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think in the second one we're clear, like, because we could just say re-add the language, but
it is important that we're clear that say like, okay, remove it, then add it again. Whereas in the one below, we're just saying like remove the language. But I see what you mean. But I think that's better than like adding words that like the word, as I said, the word permanently implies then there's some kind of difference between like removing it and then permanently removing it. Like, can you temporarily remove it? So like it implies that there is some like actual difference, which in reality there isn't. But so I just think we want to avoid like confusing anyone
I totally agree. It's out of question.
But I do see what you mean as well. I don't think there's like a perfect, as I said, if this is a draft, that's fine, because I don't think there's a perfect way to describe this.
Yeah, and we should let people more familiar with the whole system to decide.
Well,
Um,
I'm sorry.
And I think that cron will automatically try to download it. So probably try again later is not ideal. Go ahead, Thomas.
Oh, you literally just said it.
Okay.
What does try again later mean? Like I know instinctively what it means, but it doesn't sound like are we saying, because to me try again later is also remove and re-add, or does it mean restart? Like, is it cron? Is it restart the page? Try again later seems to be poor language.
Okay, we're running up against the hour. I think this is as good as we're going to get with our limited knowledge of the problem. Ralph, are you willing to update the issue?
Yeah, I can. The only detail someone of you could write me on Slack after the meeting or right now could quickly tell me what was the consensus, the rough consensus in regards of the log message?
It was to use the message from the available update page.
Yeah. To provide more information and actionable context.
No, it was the one that said like German is missing is missing the update or something. There was a message on the second page.
Okay.
Basically just grabbing that. Although my modification of that was it says missing translations, and I would have added missing and whatever translations are missing. That
okay.
Missing translations is fine. Just that same message.
And also with a link to the report page.
Report page. Okay. Got it. Oops, where's the stop button?
Great, we're a little bit over time, but thanks all for this discussion, and I'll either see you next week or in the new year.
Yeah, just one final thing before we go. Since Emma's not here to tell me to shut up, I would highly recommend reading the blog post that she wrote that I shared in the UX channel. Really good, and it got shared by Dries on LinkedIn as well. So it is actually a great blog post about how she got involved as a non-code person, how she got involved in as a UXer in Drupal and what she found and kind of why she's sticking around. So usability group gets a shout out as well. So yeah, it's well worth a read if anyone's got time, and a share. Do share it around. But yeah, have a good see you all probably in the new year, I think. But maybe I'll be around next week too.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks everyone. Thanks, Benchy.
And good holidays.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.